The alien archivist had watched countless worlds rise and vanish. Empires bloomed like desert flowers, brilliant and short-lived, then fell into dust. Some species clawed at the stars with steel and fire, only to discover the void was colder than they imagined. Others had chosen comfort over curiosity, building glass towers on their homeworlds until time itself swallowed them. But then the archivist saw them. Fragile, soft. Their bones snapped easily, their skins tore like paper. Their planet was heavy, thick with gravity. They could barely crawl out of the mud they were born in. No one would have bet on them. And yet they looked up. The first dreamers. The archivist saw their beginning. A human child, perhaps 10,000 years ago, staring at the night sky from a cold cave mouth. The stars blazed like frozen fire. The child lifted a hand as if to touch them. That was the seed. Not survival, not hunger, not fear, but longing. Most species began with survival. Humans began with wonder. They carved the moon's shape into bone, painted star maps on rock. They built stories about the lights above. They told each other, that is where we came from. That is where we'll return. Other civilizations scoffed. Children's myths, they would say, if they had known. But myths have power. For humans, myth became compass. The sky was never enough. The archivist tracked their history with fascination. He saw the first humans lash together sticks, cloth, and fire. Hot air balloons drifted above the earth like bubbles, fragile and clumsy. Entire villages gathered to watch. Children pointed, screaming with joy. Even kings craned their necks. Did they conquer new lands with these balloons? No. Did they gain riches? No. They floated, they dreamed, they laughed. That was enough. Then came two brothers in a windswept field. Their machine rattled like bones, their hands shook with fear. But when it lifted, just for seconds, it was enough. Humanity had broken its leash. The archivist remembered leaning forward in shock. They flew, fragile creatures who should have stayed crawling in dirt. Now they were riding air. And they did not stop. Gliders became airplanes. Airplanes became jets. Jets became rockets. Every failure, every crash, every broken body was fuel. Humanity collected its dead and whispered, "We will try again." The moon that should have been impossible. The archivist remembered the council debates of the galaxy. They are reckless. They will burn themselves out. They lack patience. They cannot last. But then came a year the humans left Earth. The archivist watched grainy footage, relayed across the void. A man in a white suit stepping onto gray dust. His voice, shaky but calm, spoke words that made the council fall silent. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. The archivist replayed it 1,000 times. The words were clumsy, not poetic, but they carried a weight greater than gravity. It was not one man. It was a species, and that species had touched another world. No weapons, no empire, just a flag, a footprint, a dream. Other civilizations used their first space flight for conquest. Humans used theirs for hope. Fragile yet furious. The archivist cataloged their bodies. Brittle bones, weak hearts, minds that fractured under pressure. Compared to the galaxy's elder races, humans were laughable. But he also cataloged their spirit, unkillable. The Wright brothers' flight lasted 12 seconds. It could have been a joke. Instead, it was a torch. Within 60 years, their kind was stepping on the moon. The archivist wrote in his journals, "No other species advances so recklessly, so desperately. It is as if they are afraid of stopping. It is as if their dreams chase them faster than gravity pulls them down. The fires they could not hide." The archivist did not just record triumphs. He saw their failures too. He saw rockets explode on launch pads, crews incinerated in seconds. He heard the sobbing of nations, the silence of school children watching their heroes vanish in fire. He saw planes fall into oceans, balloons ripped apart by storms, test pilots burning alive in cockpits. By all logic, by all reason, this fragile species should have stopped. But they didn't. At funerals, families wept, and then signed up their children for the next mission. Nations mourned, and then poured more money into the dream. people shook with grief and then looked up again. The archivist whispered into the dark. They dream stronger than they break. The signal in the night. One night, the archivist tuned his receivers to human broadcasts. Music poured out. Stories, laughter, static, songs of love and war and joy. The humans weren't just exploring space. They were telling it who they were. And then, in 1977, the archivist heard something new. A golden disc launched on fragile metal wings, carrying voices of Earth into the void. Greetings in 55 languages. The sound of whales. Beethoven. Chuck Berry. Laughter of children. Not weapons. Not threats. Just a message. This is us. Whoever you are, wherever you are, we want to meet you. The archivist wept. No other race had sent such a thing. He recorded in his journal. They are mad. They announce themselves to predators. They fling their hearts into the dark. But perhaps that is why they will survive the dark. The first dream that frightened the stars. The alien council watched humans with suspicion now. These fragile creatures were dangerous, not for their strength, not for their armies, but for something stranger. They did not need permission. They did not ask if it was possible. They simply tried. Where others built limits, humans built wings. The archivist remembered the first time he heard a phrase whispered by human mouths. Gravity is not a prison. It's just the first challenge. He shivered. The long silence. The archivist had expected humanity to rise like fire. And they did at first. But then came the silence. Decades passed. The humans who had once reached the moon no longer went back. The flags they planted faded. The footprints gathered dust. Their rockets launched fewer times. Their gaze turned inward. War, politics, profit, comfort. For the first time, the archivist thought, perhaps the council was right. Perhaps they have burned out. The sky grew quiet. The golden age of leaps was over. And yet, dreams, once planted, do not die. They sleep. Children of the stars. The archivist listened carefully. Though rockets launched less, another fire stirred. He heard it in the voices of children. A boy, lying on his back in a dirt field, staring at the Milky Way. He whispered to his sister, "One day I'll go there." A girl in a cramped apartment, reading a book about astronauts by flashlight, her heart racing as she traced pictures of spacesuits. She told her mother, "When I grow up, I'll build ships bigger than mountains." Though the world forgot, the children remembered. The archivist realized, dreams can skip generations, but they do not vanish. The weight of gravity. Humans knew struggle better than any species the archivist had cataloged. They carried it in their bodies. Lungs that fought for air, bones that cracked, muscles that failed. They carried it in their minds. Wars, hunger, inequality, betrayal. Other species perfected themselves before reaching the stars. Humans carried their flaws with them like luggage. And yet, when they stumbled, when they broke, when gravity pushed them down, they rose. We fell, we rose, we dreamed again. It became their pattern, their heartbeat. Fire in the sky. The archivist receivers caught the next spark. New rockets, stronger, cheaper, born not from governments but from stubborn dreamers who refused to let the stars be forgotten. One rocket exploded, scattering fire across the sea. The world laughed. Headlines called it failure. But a month later, another rocket launched. It soared, returned, and landed on its tail like a falcon. The world gasped. The archivist leaned forward. They are learning to fall without breaking. They are learning to fail into victory. The ones who tried again. The archivist cataloged their failures. A shuttle disintegrated on re-entry. A capsule cracked in orbit. Lives lost, families shattered. But always, the humans returned to the launch pads. They carved names of the fallen onto plaques. They carried photographs of lost astronauts into new ships. Their failures became sacred fuel. When the council mocked them, the archivist whispered, "They have learned the oldest truth. To reach the stars, one must bleed into them." Whispers across the void. As the archivist observed, the humans built not just rockets, but voices that reached beyond their own skies. They sent telescopes into orbit, eyes larger than mountains, staring into the beginning of time itself. They listened for whispers, for proof they were not alone. The archivist heard their scientists argue passionately, their poets write songs about starlight, their children build paper rockets in classrooms. Though they were small, though their budgets were weak, though their world argued about everything else, they agreed on this. The stars are ours to touch. The return of the dream. At last, after decades, the archivist saw something he had feared he would never see again. Humans setting their course for other worlds. Not only the moon this time, but Mars. Plans etched on blueprints, prototypes tested in deserts, cities imagined beneath red skies. They fought bitterly about money, politics, resources. Yet beneath it all, one truth burned. They could not stay on Earth forever. The archivist felt his heart's quicken. He had recorded the rise of hundreds of species, but none who stumbled so much, fell so far, and still dreamed with such ferocity. The power of small steps. Other species built grand fleets before venturing into space. Humans built tiny, fragile machines. They did not wait for perfection. They launched what they had. A rover the size of a car, crawling across Mars, whispering hello into the void. A probe drifting beyond their system, carrying a photo of a pale blue dot. A telescope unfolding its mirrors like petals in the cold. None of these were weapons. None were empires. They were dreams stretched into metal. The archivist recorded. No matter how small the step, they make it mean everything. The world united in wonder. The archivist noticed a strange thing. When humans launched a rover, the world stopped fighting, if only for a moment. Nations who hated each other still celebrated together as the rover sent its first photo. Children in every corner of Earth cheered when a probe touched down safely. For once, they were not divided by borders. They were one species looking outward. Other civilizations united through fear, war, or necessity. Humans united through wonder. The archivist whispered, "Perhaps that is their greatest weapon. Not strength, not cunning, but wonder shared." The archivist's dilemma. The archivist had been taught that humans were fragile, reckless, doomed. That recording their history was enough, for they would never reach the stars long enough to matter. But as he filled his journals, he realized something terrifying. What if the council was wrong? What if the humans were not a dying ember, but the beginning of a fire? He could already see it. Their return to the moon, their footprints in Martian dust, their ships refueling on asteroids, their colonies under alien skies. It might take decades, centuries, but they would not stop, because their dreams were stronger than gravity. The dawn before the leap. The archivist had watched for centuries. He had chronicled their fire, their silence, their return. He thought he knew the rhythm of humanity. Fall, rise. But what came next was not rhythm. It was a storm. The humans no longer spoke of if. They spoke only of when. Not can we reach Mars, but when do we leave? Not should we build colonies, but where will we place them? The archivist trembled. They're no longer dreaming. They are building. Mars, the red beginning. The first ships were ugly things, towers of steel, scarred and rattling. Their cabins shook, their systems failed, their crews vomited and cursed. But they landed, and when the first humans set foot on Martian soil, they did not whisper. They shouted, "We're home again." The world erupted in cheers. Flags waved, fireworks filled skies. And though nations argued over who paid for what, it didn't matter. For that single moment, the entire species claimed victory. The archivist wrote, "They do not arrive gracefully. They crash, they bleed, they stagger. But when they rise, their cry shakes worlds." The settlers of dust. The first colony was a collection of domes half broken by storms. Power failed, oxygen leaked, water froze. Yet the humans laughed. They sent messages back to Earth, faces red with Martian dust, grinning with cracked lips. Still alive, still here. Children grew up inside domes, their first words not mama or papa, but airlock and habitat. They pressed their tiny hands against glass walls, staring out at red horizons where no human had walked before. The archivist felt something stir within him, something like pride. The architects of infinity. Mars was not enough. Soon, Human minds stretched further. Lunar cities glowed like lanterns. Mining rigs burrowed into asteroids. Floating platforms drifted through the storms of Jupiter. Wherever gravity chained them, they broke free. Wherever death whispered, they laughed louder. And when machines became their tools, they did not surrender their humanity. They painted murals on starships. They wrote poems on titanium walls. They carried guitars into orbit. The archivist whispered to himself, "They are not conquerors. They are celebrants." Every world they touch becomes a canvas. The council reacts. At last, the council of elder species noticed. They had dismissed humanity as noisy primitives. But now, they saw colonies dotting worlds, signals bouncing across systems, trade ships carrying or in laughter alike. One counselor spat, "They will spread like infection." Another muttered, "They are too reckless. They will destroy themselves." A third said nothing, but fear clouded her eyes. Only the archivist spoke with certainty. "No, they will not stop, because for them, the void is not emptiness. It is possibility, the great silence broken. For millennia, the galaxy had been quiet. Civilizations had risen and burned, their ruins drifting silent. But humanity refused to be silent. Their voices filled the dark, songs broadcast from satellites, greetings in 100 languages carried by probes, laughter recorded on space stations. The archivist realized the great silence was never natural. It was fear. Every species chose quiet to survive. Every species hid from the dark. But humans did not hide. They sang louder. They shouted into the abyss, "We are here." And for the first time, the archivist wondered, maybe the galaxy needed their noise. The first starship. The moment came when humanity took its boldest step. Not a rocket, not a shuttle, not a colony barge. A starship. It was built from metals mined in asteroids, fueled by engines once thought impossible. Every piece of it was scarred with the fingerprints of thousands of dreamers. On its hull, painted in crude brushstrokes, were the words, "Dreams stronger than gravity." The archivist, watching from his hidden observatory, felt tears burn his eyes. They named it after their truth. When the engines roared and the ship leapt beyond their sun, the archivist wrote, "This is the day they learned to fly forever." Humanity's gift. The archivist began to understand something he had missed for centuries. Humanity's power was not in their weapons. It was not in their science. It was in their defiance of endings. Every other species had asked, "What is safe?" Humanity asked, "What is possible?" Every other species feared silence. Humanity filled it with song. Every other species bent to gravity. Humanity turned it into a story. The archivist realized they're not just reaching the stars. They're teaching the stars how to dream again. The archivist's last entry. He had once been ordered to observe and record, nothing more. But now, he knew he could not remain silent. He would bring this truth to the council, even if it meant exile, even if it meant death. Humanity is not a flicker. Humanity is the match that will set the galaxy alight. As he closed his journal, he wrote his final words. "I thought dreams were fragile. I thought gravity was absolute. But I was wrong. Dreams are stronger than gravity. And the humans, those stubborn, laughing, fragile humans, are proof that nothing in the universe can chain a dream that refuses to die." Epilogue. The stars listen. Light years away, in the silence of space, the first human starship whispered its message again and again into the void. "We are here. We are coming. We dream." And for the first time in uncounted ages, the stars listened.